Hey everyone, this is Julie. I'm in Lawrence, Massachusetts, South Lawrence, and anybody who's watching this probably knows that in Lawrence, Massachusetts, also other communities surrounding Andover, North Andover, we had a series of gas explosions, and thousands of us were displaced from our homes over the last few days. So all of the food went rotten in our refrigerators, no electricity, not just the gas, but the electricity was cut off with everyone. So now I'm at my parents' house, also in South Lawrence, and fortunately they compost. So I could bring all of my food from my apartment as well as the food that's in their refrigerators and put in the compost thing. So I was just gonna demonstrate that that's what I'm doing. So I just have this food here, but I thought it would be a great opportunity to teach about composting a little bit. So this is like a backyard compost thing. It's very common, right? And there's compost that's been in there for a little while. And normally when you compost, you add like some dry materials so that over the food, so that you could bring like a little air. You don't want to just pile all the wet food up, and you put some stuff in there and it brings air to the situation. So then you add, here's my rotten food, right? So I'm just gonna dump that in here. A lot more to put in there, but that's what I have from my refrigerator. You don't put meat in there. And then you want to add some more dried material on that wet layer. So what I've decided to do, instead of using leaves for the next wet layer, is to use my Columbia gas bill for the next layer. And you don't want to just like put layers of paper in the compost. It's better so you get more aeration if you shred it. So I'm gonna shred my Columbia gas bill. Columbia Gas is the corporation responsible for the explosions. So this isn't against the workers, what I'm doing right now. This is about corporate irresponsibility, particularly in poor communities. Apparently there were some warnings and that there had been some pressure problems in this system. I don't know who's responsible for ignoring those warnings, but as a result of overpressurization of some gas lines that they were fixing, Columbia Gas caused ruin and even death to people in my community and communities surrounding here. We're all part of one community in that sense. The young man who died was just about 2 blocks from here. He did not live in this neighborhood, but he was visiting a friend. He had just gotten his license that day. And so just want to honor the sadness of that family, the sadness of the community who knows that young man and his family. So yeah, fuck Columbia Gas. And we have a lot of questions to face in this community about poverty and racism and the, I don't know how to open this. Oh, here it is. And the way that our communities are ignored or more horribly impacted by, decisions that are often out of our hands, and people that do not really care about the people in this community as much as they care about people in other communities. So, we'll crack some eggs in here. Got a little coconut water, a little agua de coco. I don't know if this really goes bad, but it didn't taste good, so I'm throwing it out. So yeah, this is an advertisement for composting, as well as fuck Columbia Gas. And what I also want to say, I spent the last few days, I had a place to stay while I was displaced in a nearby place that was not affected by the gas shutoffs. But I was able to be at the Arlington School, which is where one of the temporary shelters was set up from Thursday night through yesterday. It's still open today. And I'm not going to start naming people who were over there from this community in Lawrence because I'll forget people, and honestly there were a lot of people there. We were all there together, but we didn't necessarily know one another and each other's names. But anybody who's watching this who was there, you know who you are. And I watched an amazing grassroots local community effort. The Red Cross was there from day one, minute one. I'll give them credit for that. There was not one Spanish speaker among them. And so really they took a back seat, would be an understatement. They were like in the trunk and it was closed, but they were there. And all grassroots people came in for an incredible effort. No incidences, no problems, no fighting, very well organized, people just pulling together to serve the people in our community who are most affected. Maybe a few hundred people, I don't even know, are staying in that shelter for a couple days. And then I watched the transition from the grassroots led effort in the Arlington school to yesterday when MEMA, which is like the Massachusetts FEMA, came in with the next layer of the Red Cross people and a lot of other organizations. The whole dynamic changed, and it just went, to me, I mean, there's a lot of things I could say about it, I don't want to say too much, but it shows the difference between when community people organize their own resources and make their own decisions internally for the best service of the people who are most affected in their own community. And when the state level and higher level nonprofit agencies came in, this is not to disparage anybody in particular, but I got to translate in the room with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army, and yeah, it was not pretty. Again, there were almost no Spanish speakers except for people who came in from the community to translate for the Red Cross. And you just saw the difference between the community-led, community-based, community decision-making of the running of the shelter for the days prior, and when, not for nothing, primarily white-led, white people-run organizations attempting to then determine and distribute resources in the community of Lawrence. And it was not a pretty situation, though, blessed people, I understand the need for charity, but it was not great. So again, peace to all the people who were there, all the people who gave. The donations were overwhelming. I don't want to go on and on. I also just want to say as a last point, in my understanding, Puerto Rico still doesn't have power, electricity, and water in certain places. And so even a lot of the people who are in line waiting for resources, people in the Puerto Rican Dominican community were really in touch with the fact that, they were in a much better situation than many of their own people in Puerto Rico, which is also a part of the United States. So, yeah, if you don't compost now and you have the land to do it, you should start composting, and fuck Columbia Gas.